Welcome to the Fuse podcast, where we spark change through conversation. My name is Samron.
My name is Itinolua.
Today we are talking about race. How do we define it and how do we talk about it?
We're going to start the conversation with Taj Suleyman. Taj is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion here in the city of Springfield. Taj, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. First, thanks for having me. Again, my name is Taj Suleyman. I'm the Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, working for the city of Springfield. I was born and raised in Lebanon. That is the country, not the town nearby here. From a Sudanese father, so North African father, and a Saudi Arabian mother, who's also a black woman. And I am a former refugee, and also lived in many parts of the country in the United States. Salt Lake City, Utah, that's first home, and then Portland, Northwest, and Iowa, and now here we're Midwest, closer to the South. So thanks for having me.
So you came here a little over 20 years ago. Was race a topic of discussion or did we comfortable talking about it?
Well, as a black person, as a young black man, I would like to identify as a young man. And still, race has always been a forefront, always reminded, whether, in the United States or prior to the United States. So, yes, it has been. Now, also, it was an opportunity also to relate, to understand also the black identity is not a monolithic identity. So if someone comes from Middle East as a black man versus someone who is a black person also in the United States, or even from maybe Latin America coming. So it has always been a way to build the bridge, always been the way to actually recognize those commonalities and identity.
Talking about identifying yourself as a black person, have you experienced like any struggle or any situation?
Yes, I would say it was a struggle. At the same time, also it was an opportunity to utilize this type of struggle into implementing that change and to being part of this change. So yeah, it has been, especially coming to the United States. First, from far, when someone sees me, like this is a black man walking, and then as they get closer, with an accent, and they get even closer to me and get to know me, it's like, whoa, okay, what are you? This is confusing for us. So I use it, I use humor, but I also use that identity. There's so much complexity around it, especially with the black identity. Especially, it's not like I said, it's not a monolithic. It's not looking at one lens. So other areas of identities, of our circle of identities, I think it played a big role. While it has been, it was a struggle. Whether we're talking about how I'm expected to be as a black man in the United States, to how also I could break that even, that stereotype of who I am. So it's struggle, but also it's an opportunity for me, what it means to me to self-empower, and also what it means to others to educate.
I know that a lot of people kind of term this along with the concept of ethnicity. So are they the same thing, ethnicity and race?
Yes, and thank you. This is, again, such a powerful topic that dear to my heart, especially someone comes and experiences this from the day was born to now. Now I see it even with my own daughter as well. Race and ethnicity has always historically kind of interchanged. And if you see what, the definition of being a certain race, especially black, we see that it changes. We could see the definition around race often changes. Who's part of this identity or who's not part of this identity today or years from now, right? Or years ago. So ethnicity, when we're looking at the race, like, of course, they use a biological term, they use whatever terms, political term to identify. Ethnicity seems to be closer in a sense where there is a cultural identity added to to race, right? While you are, originally probably from Nigeria,
Yes.
and I belong to Sudan, father from the African side, or the black Afro-Arab. We, probably we may look, black, but we have those cultural differences, right? We while we also understand that there are commonalities even within the racial identity, but ethnicity tend to also identify the in-group and out-group dynamic, right? Even within the United States, we have my brother Stephen here from Detroit. Probably will, if he goes to Chicago, definitely will see how different he is. If he goes probably further south, that's probably another culture shock. So cultural aspect, cultural identity, I think it plays a big role in my experience, while also recognizing not only United States, there is a racial identity or black identity. Dr. Muhammad, I was talking to Dr. Faris Muhammad, who's from also Detroit. He was also talking about, we were talking about a global blackness. What it means? What does it mean? Even if you're from Brazil, Afro-Brazilian or Afro-Latino, you do share, you do share those commonalities, right? You do share how your mama or how your grandma, disciplined you or showed you the love. You do share even with songs. You do share with art. You do share with spirituality. So there is an identity to having commonalities. There is also an experiences. While this is how I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it objectively, and I'd like to see it also on a personal level, what it means to us or to myself to be a black person, a black man in the United States.
So Taj, you were talking about your identity. Like people see you like, oh, he's a black person, and when they come closer, they see like your accent is different. How do you show your identity? How do you respond to those people? Like,
well, thank you. This is a good question. Especially we are in Springfield, right, Missouri, and not many of us around here, and we do feel like I'm a celebrity. It could be sometimes annoying to feel always a celebrity, that hyper attention, while also, I write it. And now if someone comes closer and want to say, this is definitely not a Springfieldian accent. Where are you from? It's like, well, sit down, and do you have time? We can talk about, that. So there is the what I appreciate in general, and just what I'd like to focus on in our community, that there is a sense of curiosity, while also there is a sense of hesitance. Should I ask? Or should I ask? Yesterday I had a training around intercultural communication training with the city staff. This is part of their orientation, that they get lucky to have me on these presentations. So someone before I started my presentation, someone's like, well, I have a question, and he's from a smaller town. Where are you from? I said, I appreciate you starting this conversation with us. I love it. This is where I'm from, and this is what, I'm a U.S. American citizen, mind you. So to him, he took me aside and he's like, he apologized. Like, I hope I didn't offend you. He's like, no, please ask. Curiosity helps you. Like one of my mentors, she says, curiosity kills, but what brings it alive? Pleasure of knowing, and pleasure of even exploring and knowing one another. So that's away from terminologies, away from the big intellectual, theoretical, base work. The human connection. If someone, you could definitely sense if someone is really sincere to get to know you and know that, hey, I've never interacted with someone who looks like you or sounds like you. It's like, well, it's your lucky day. Let's talk.
so racism is a huge and complex topic in United States, and the state of Missouri has identified 9 hate groups. So how do you guys are responding to it, and how do you address structural racism?
When we're talking about race and racism, and specifically, we mix them together. unfortunately, because race is not necessarily a conversation to have a deficit approach. Racism, yes, it is a painful, violent different forms of violence when it comes to talking about racism. That's where you're denying someone's right as a human based off of their race, right? Racial identity. So while we're talking about race to way of curiosity and to get to know each other away from I'm above you, therefore you have to, you have to submit or conform to my norm. Racism, whether intentionally or unintentionally, happens or happened historically in our country, and what we're seeing right now, we're seeing that it doesn't serve us anymore. Redlining that used to exist in the United States here, or even the lynching that took place in a place, or whatever. While we recognize that this has been part of our history and some of it is also part of our presence, we're also recognizing that there's a healing to take place, while recognizing that if I want to talk about diversifying workforce, it's good for business, right? If I wanted to talk about what form of racism, how do you address it, away from let's hold our hands and be performative and sing a kumbaya song, which is not going to solve our problem. So understanding when we're talking about structural racism, we're talking about analyzing what areas in structural racism and how we address them to avoid, to proactively avoid making that the mistake of denying someone's rights of being in the country or even enjoying like everyone else, right? Mm-hmm.
Has there been like any setback, like people resisting change when it comes to like structural racism, and how is that being handled?
When it comes to change is scary. Change is sometimes also a sense of loss. Some people can feel when we're talking about the racial, the demographical, when it comes to demographical data, we're seeing that the quote unquote minority, racial minority, is growing. While it's creating, it can create that sense of loss. It creates a sense of fear, and it could create. But this is not where we wanted to focus on. 1, 2. Understanding why change is scary, and also why change is important to us, instead of staying stagnant and doing, whether the technology that we have right now is serving us. This is why we see the value of changing that form of evolution or form of progression. So yes, there always will be a pushback. But the approach, I think, should vary, and you should meet where people are at, instead of just throwing terminologies, throwing isms, you want to understand why this is important for you. If I'm working with you in a department, city department, or a division, why is it important to us even in the community as a business owner, why is it important to be inclusive, to be equitable, whether with your staff or even with your customers or the community that you're serving?
Judging from my own experience coming from Nigeria, colorism is like a big term. Yes. I know you're really familiar with that in African society. But in as much as coming to the United States as an international student, I've also gotten to understand the concept of racism properly. And I know that we all know that racism is known in the US, but however, some individuals still experience discrimination due to colorism. And for the sake of our audience, we'd like to clarify the concept of colorism, which is discrimination based on dark skin tone, and it's typically among people of the same racial or ethnic group. So how is racism connected to colorism?
Yes, thank you. And you're also looking at the definition of beauty, definition of acceptance, definition of you see it. You ask your fellow, whether from Southeast Asia or in Asia, or you see it in Latin America, or you see it in anywhere in the world, dark has always been the negative, has always been the evil, always been the ugly. Unfortunately, we see it. While the lighter, this is where the beauty, this is where you put the what's it called, for skin
beauty products.
products different too, and or this is where we're seeing it even in the media, and you see it. But good thing that for the last several years right now we're seeing the beauty. If you I don't know if you probably you're not old enough to know that some of our artists even in the United States that talk black is beautiful. You know, I'm black, and there is a beauty in it. It's a complementary to see, you know, to see the beauty in blackness, and to be proud of our identity. So, yes, when you're talking about colorism and how, you know, what defines you to be accepted, and how, and I could throw maybe some historical sayings and derogatory terminologies at someone who's darker versus someone who's lighter, which should be probably more closer to the society or be accepted. But we're seeing all that even with hair, even with skin tone, even with body. We're seeing the celebration right now. And I think those who are, especially younger generation, are understanding, they're seeing the beauty in any that comes in any form, right? Especially in blackness.
For the sake of our audience, because we know our audience cut across students, community members, can you just identify like one resource that you feel might be helpful for people that need need help with issues of acclimation into the society?
Yes, acclimation and understanding integration, understanding how the sense of belonging. Now, in the city, since this is a local government, while people classically or traditionally know that, you know, the city only has the police department or the fire department, or even fixing the roads. There's so many opportunities, such speaking on behalf of your community, speaking for, you know, representing the community on boards and commissions. Also, there's some contracts, some grants. If you are even in entrepreneurship, you like to start a business, you can go to the city and ask how to start a business. We are working closely again with whether the MBA, the Multicultural Business Association, or MSU, or different organizations, to also recognize that there are even if the services or the resources that we have, opportunities that we have, the community may not be aligning with the needs, but we have already a vast number of partnership of organizations that we can refer. So this is something that we're doing also externally, working systemically to address those needs. So if anyone, and that's if there is a need, especially at MSU students, if you feel, even if you feel, you know what, I want to go to the grocery store and I can't find this type of spices, please call me. And even on that, and I can refer you. If you even have a need of, okay, I'm in need for a job, but I'm in need of a certain thing to feel like I am welcomed here. Good thing, along with MSU and other entities and the city, that we can find. So if you are coming here as someone like me, you came here a year and plus into the country or into the community here, I encourage you to not just to shelter yourself within these campus walls, but also connect. There are organizations, including the city, who would love to. We already have individuals, students who are actually applying for internship. Paid internship opportunities. We have, or even possibilities for jobs. So it's a matter of asking, matter of reaching out, matter also, you might feel uncomfortable to get outside of your comfort zone and ask. And you know probably more than anyone else when you come in to a new home what it means and how you can make it your own home, right? While it is challenging, sometimes you do so, but you create it rather than just staying in your dorm or your classroom and thinking nothing is about to change, right? You have to be part of the change. So that's something I encourage you to do.
Thank you, Taj Suleyman, for your experiences and sharing your experiences at Fuse Podcast. Do you have final thoughts or remarks for our audience?
No, thank you again. Thank you. This is a Fuse. I heard about it just from Stephen and the team here. It's so exciting to see you part of it, and I look forward that you are also reaching out to outside the campus because this is exactly what we need in our community. It's this informal conversation that makes a big difference. So again, thank you for having me, and look forward for more.
Thank you, Taj Suleyman, for having this conversation with us.